Welcome to our channel. We're thrilled to have you here, and we've got a thrilling story lined up just for you. Before we dive in, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below and share your location with us. And if you enjoyed today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Tomorrow, we'll bring you another incredible tale that you won't want to miss. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Your journey into these unforgettable stories starts right now. Watch a royal guard defend Buckingham in a life or death moment. The sun hung high in the sky, casting long shadows across the grounds of Buckingham Palace. It was a calm afternoon, with tourists meandering through the courtyard, taking photos and enjoying the royal atmosphere. At his post, guard Ethan Williams stood perfectly still, his scarlet uniform standing out against the gray stone walls of the palace behind him. To the casual observer, Ethan appeared to be just another ceremonial soldier, part of the majestic tradition of guarding the palace. But beneath that uniform, there was so much more. At 32 years old, Ethan was no ordinary ceremonial guard. He had seen the heat of battle, serving 2 tours in Afghanistan. His combat training had honed him into an elite soldier, someone who could seamlessly switch from standing motionless to engaging in a life or death situation in a heartbeat. His years of service had made him an expert at remaining alert, even in the most peaceful of settings. While his rifle was held with perfect precision, his senses were constantly at work, cataloging every movement in the crowd. The tourists around him admired the pomp and ceremony, taking photos without understanding the depth of Ethan's training. They were oblivious to the quiet power he embodied, the years of military discipline that had shaped him. With his rifle steady and eyes focused straight ahead, he maintained his post, his every muscle coiled with readiness. He was not simply a statue in a red coat. He was a soldier, prepared for whatever came his way. Despite the tranquil environment, Ethan's eyes never stopped scanning the area. Years of experience had taught him to recognize the smallest signs of trouble, to trust his instincts. His military training had made him acutely aware of every shift in the crowd, every movement that could signal danger. As the afternoon wore on, the peaceful scene would soon be shattered. But for now, Ethan stood, unwavering, guarding not just the palace, but the legacy and tradition it represented. And in that moment, he was both a symbol of honor and a sentinel of readiness. The peaceful afternoon at Buckingham Palace, once calm and serene, began to shift. As tourists continued snapping photos and enjoying the sights, a strange energy filled the air. Guard Ethan Williams remained perfectly still, his eyes locked ahead, as his combat-trained instincts began to pick up on something unsettling. In the midst of the crowd, one man stood out, Cody Riker. Riker moved through the tourists with a deliberate, almost predatory grace, like a shark in shallow waters. His leather jacket, despite the warmth of the afternoon, hung heavy on his frame, and his eyes, cold, calculating, told a story of someone who had spent years behind bars. The prison tattoos that peeked above his collar were a clear sign of a violent past. His movements were methodical, his focus unwavering, and his proximity to the Royal Guard's post felt like a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. Ethan's trained eyes noticed the subtle shift in the crowd as people instinctively moved away from Riker. A young mother pulled her children closer, and a couple paused their photos to look up at the man who seemed to radiate menace. Even the pigeons scattered, sensing the threat in the air. Yet, the tourists remained oblivious to the danger, their attention consumed by the grand architecture of the palace. Ethan, however, wasn't fooled. He had seen this type of behavior before, slow, calculated, and dangerous. His training had taught him to read people, to spot the signs of a predator before it was too late. He observed the way Riker's hand kept straying to his jacket, checking for the concealed weapon that Ethan had already noticed, a knife, hidden but ready. Every move Riker made seemed to tighten the tension in the air. He was getting closer, step by step, his body language screaming intent to harm. The elderly veteran nearby, dressed in his military blazer, his medals glinting in the sun, watched closely, recognizing the danger. Ethan remained motionless, his eyes focused straight ahead, but every fiber of his being was prepared for the threat he knew was coming. And then it happened. Riker was just a few feet away now, and his voice cut through the stillness, dripping with contempt. Look at you, standing there like you're something special, he muttered, his words carrying the venom of someone who had spent years seething with hatred for authority. Ethan's grip tightened around his ceremonial rifle. He was ready. The tension in the air was palpable, thickening with each passing second. Ethan Williams could feel it in his bones. Riker had closed the gap, his steps deliberate, his eyes never leaving Ethan's stance. It was as if the crowd had suddenly gone silent, the hum of excitement from the tourists replaced by an eerie stillness. Ethan remained motionless, his training kicking in, but every part of him was on high alert. Riker was no ordinary troublemaker. This man was a predator, and Ethan was the prey he had chosen. The tourists, blissfully unaware, continued to take photos, unaware of the danger inching closer. But as Riker's cold gaze locked onto Ethan, the crowd's energy shifted. The young couple that had been smiling for a selfie near Ethan's post had stopped, sensing the dangerous atmosphere. The elderly veteran, his instincts honed by years of service, straightened up and looked around, his eyes narrowing. He had recognized the warning signs. Riker was no stranger to violence, and his body language screamed that he was preparing for something far worse than a confrontation. Ethan noticed the slight shift in Riker's weight, the way his hand kept slipping toward his jacket. It was instinctive, a move Ethan knew well, the check of a weapon. As Riker closed the distance, his voice cut through the quiet. "I see you," he said, his words filled with disdain, his breath hot on the air. "Bet you think you're untouchable, don't you?" Ethan's grip on his rifle tightened, but he didn't flinch. His training had taught him to remain still, to keep his composure under pressure. But inside, his senses were screaming. He could feel the rise of danger, the way the air seemed to hum with tension. Riker moved closer, his face twisted in a scowl, his breath steady, like a man who had nothing to lose. "You think you're special, standing there in your little uniform. I've spent 15 years behind bars staring at men in uniforms like yours." "They don't scare me," he sneered. The words dripped with venom, each syllable a challenge. Ethan stood his ground, eyes focused ahead, every muscle taut, ready for whatever would come next. It was just a matter of time now. Riker was too close. He could feel it, like the calm before the storm, knowing something was about to break. And in that moment, Ethan was prepared. He had faced this kind of threat before, and he wouldn't back down. The seconds seemed to stretch, every heartbeat a countdown to the inevitable. The moment the words left Riker's mouth, the tension broke like a snap of a rope pulled too tight. He moved in quickly, a flash of metal gleaming in his hand as he drew the knife from beneath his jacket. The blade shimmered in the afternoon sun, its sharp edge catching the light before it aimed directly at Ethan's throat. The attack was swift, deadly, a strike meant to open his artery in a single motion. But Ethan was ready. In a heartbeat, the ceremonial rifle, once held still with perfect precision, became a weapon in his hands. The blade clashed against the metal of the rifle in a deafening ring. The crowd recoiled, some screaming, others frozen in shock. Ethan, his stance unbroken, shifted his weight, using the length of the rifle to deflect the blade's deadly arc. His mind was clear, every move owned by years of combat training. His eyes never left Riker, the calm focus of a soldier who had seen real violence before. Riker, momentarily stunned, recovered quickly, his prison-honed instincts kicking in. He slashed again, aiming for Ethan's ribs with a vicious swipe. But Ethan was already moving, his body flowing with the precision of a trained fighter. The ceremonial uniform, so stiff and formal, did nothing to hinder his fluid movements. He parried the strike, the blade missing his flesh by mere inches. Riker snarled, frustration creeping into his face as his attacks grew wilder, more desperate. "Not so ceremonial now, am I?" Ethan's voice cut through the chaos, steady and commanding. The words stung Riker's pride, but Ethan didn't give him a moment to react. With a swift move, he stepped inside Riker's guard, using the stock of the rifle to land a precise strike to Riker's knife arm. The impact sent a jolt of pain through Riker's body, and the knife clattered to the ground. Riker, enraged, launched himself at Ethan, fists flying in a flurry of violent punches. Each strike was aimed with vicious intent, but none of them found their mark. Ethan's movements were like water, flowing effortlessly from one defense to the next. His combat experience from Afghanistan had prepared him for moments like this, when every second mattered and every movement had to be perfect. The struggle continued in a blur of movement, but Ethan's calm professionalism held firm. He used Riker's own momentum against him, shifting his weight and, in one seamless motion, throwing Riker to the ground. As the chaos settled, the full weight of the situation began to sink in. Riker, pinned to the ground by Ethan's boot, continued to struggle, his breath ragged and filled with venom. His attempts to break free were futile. Ethan stood over him, the perfect picture of control. His rifle, still held with the same precision as when he first stood guard, had now become a symbol of his calm authority. The fight was over, but the lesson had just begun. "You broke protocol," Riker spat, his voice filled with disbelief and humiliation. He was still defiant, but there was no hiding the pain in his hand, crushed beneath Ethan's boot. "I thought you guys just stood there, looking pretty, playing soldier." Ethan's response was steady, unshaken. "Our first duty is to protect. The ceremony, the uniform, that's tradition. But make no mistake, we're combat-ready soldiers first." His voice carried no pride, no boast, just the cold certainty of someone who understood the real responsibility behind the uniform. He wasn't just there for show. He was there to serve, to protect, and when necessary, to fight. The scene was almost surreal. Tourists who had once marveled at the spectacle of the royal guards now stood in stunned silence, their phones forgotten in their hands. They had come for the tradition, the pomp and circumstance, but now they were witnessing something entirely different. Ethan wasn't just a symbol of ceremonial duty. He was a soldier, trained and ready to confront real threats. As armed response officers arrived to secure the area, Ethan remained at his post, his posture as impeccable as it had been before. He allowed the officers to take over, stepping back with a fluid grace that was characteristic of his training. Even as the situation ended, Ethan never relaxed his vigilance. He knew that his job wasn't just to stand still. It was to remain alert, to be ready for whatever might come next. Riker was dragged away, still muttering threats, but his defiance was hollow now. His prison-hardened exterior had cracked under the weight of Ethan's discipline. As he was led to the police car, his eyes burned with rage, but it was clear. He had underestimated the man in front of him. Ethan had shown him the true meaning of duty, a lesson that would resonate with everyone who had witnessed the confrontation. The tourists who had watched the events unfold now saw the guards in a new light. The uniform wasn't just, "We'd love to hear from you." What do you think about the incredible discipline and readiness shown by guard Ethan Williams in today's story? Do you believe you would have been able to maintain such calm under pressure? Or would you have reacted differently? How important do you think it is for guards like Ethan to be not only symbols of tradition, but also elite soldiers capable of handling real danger? It's fascinating to see how the crowd's perception of the Royal Guards changes once they realize the intense training and experience behind that ceremonial uniform, don't you think? Share your thoughts on what it means to truly serve and protect, especially when faced with a threat like this. Also, if you've ever witnessed a similar moment of bravery or discipline in your own life, we'd love for you to share that story with us. Your insights are what make this community so special, and we can't wait to continue these conversations with you. Make sure to drop a comment below, and if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We've got plenty more incredible stories coming your way. Your support helps us bring more of these powerful tales to life, so hit that like button and stay tuned for our next video tomorrow.